The Amherst Regional School Committee holding a virtual meeting tonight. One of the items on their agenda, including the transition of 6th grade students from the elementary schools to the middle school in fall 2023. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. Welcome to Western Mass News at 10 here on Fox 6. I'm Chris Pisano. Western Mass News reporter Kristen Burnell joins us live in studio with more on what we learned from the meeting. Kristen.
Chris, about 140 6th graders are expected to attend for the 2023-2024 inaugural school year. In tonight's meeting, school committee members discussed specific topics about how to best transition this class into the middle school. On Tuesday, the Amherst Regional School Committee held a virtual meeting. One big item on the agenda, recommendations for the first-year transition of Amherst Public Schools 6th grade students from the elementary schools to the middle school for fall 2023. Western Mass News was listening in on that meeting, which began with public comment where a voice recording was played from a group of Amherst Middle School staff members. In a joint statement, they expressed concerns about the proposal of having separate bathrooms for the 6th grade students.
This leaves the 7th and 8th graders, 62% of the student body, with access to one all-gender single-stall bathroom and 2 multi-stalls each for boys and girls. But one of those multi-stall options would be on a different floor from where most of the classrooms are. They are an integrated, not segregated middle school in which any student can use any bathroom that aligns with their gender expression.
Superintendent Michael Morris acknowledged their concerns.
The second floor bathrooms in the 6th grade would be also used by the 8th graders. There'd be a bathroom monitor on the hallway, but no other restrictions or controls. Been some reports of students who have been part of this conversation recently who kind of referenced that cross-grade or cross-age relationship has been helpful as bodily changes are occurring.
One committee member shared his opinion about the topic.
If we can avoid bathroom exclusivity for a grade, then that's preferred. If we can do that while meeting the needs of all students.
Superintendent Morris also spoke about new security video access protocols in the district due to a request from the Amherst School Committee.
When we do have video that captures a situation, we're able to actively look at it and understand what happened and then try to resolve challenges with more information than we have than disagreeing opinions.
Now, some of the other new recommendations for the first-year transition bringing 6th graders to the middle school include the following: using a secondary bus school system, a different bell schedule, and a different lunch period than the 7th and 8th graders. Superintendent Morris made it clear that he wants to have further conversations with families and staff before implementing any of these recommendations, including having separate bathrooms for each grade level. Reporting live in studio, Kristen Burnell, Western Mass News.
Kristen,